Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. How we feeling? How we feeling? I'm doing okay. It's been a bit of a rough day, but we chillin', we vibin', we doing what we can to get by. It's okay, because we're gonna do more Our Life things. Also, I don't know if I've ever clicked and showed y'all the DLC info before, but this is kind of how it's broken down. So there's Step 1 DLC, Step 2 DLC, Step 3, the Cove Wedding DLC, and then Derek and Baxter DLCs. But that's how that's broken down. It's also a good way to check if everything downloads when you get it. But okie dokie. Little bit of water. And let's get into some Cove moments, shall we? So today will at least be drive, depending on how long drive is. It'll get better for you when I have top and get rest. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I'm gonna do this one, see how we're feeling. Maybe we'll try and tackle another one tonight. I don't know. I feel kind of garbo, so it might just be one and then go get some rest. Also, looking at it, I don't recognize a lot of the Step 3 DLCs, so I'm wondering if I ever even played these moments, or if I just dug my feet in on all of them so I'd still have something new to look forward to. Okay, let's hop into Drive. Like a lazy cat, you stretched your arms above your head and yawned, blinking your eyes sleepily. The day was warm and pleasant, and you were lounging on the couch in the living room, finding it difficult to do much in that moment. Your moms and Liz had gone out shopping, looking for some new items for your sister to take back and decorate her college dorm with. Cove might help make me feel better, honestly. They had asked if you wanted to go with them, but you declined. For you, today was all about relaxation. Cove had dropped by to spend some time with you, content to join in with doing nothing. Of course, I mean, we've been doing nothing together for forever, basically. The two of you had been chatting idly as you lazed around, talking about the other things you had planned for the summer. Not stretched out across him. Sit next to him. One of his legs was stiffly crossed over the other, and he had barely looked at you the entire time he'd been there. The day dragged on, and you found yourself yawning more and more often between conversations. You had almost dozed off completely when suddenly a buzz rang out, disturbing the silence. Your phone was on its charger in the kitchen, so it couldn't have been that. Cove pulled his own phone from his back pocket and checked the screen. His movement had jostled you, so you tried to readjust your position to get it right again. It's my mom. Aw, I miss her. She's so freaking sweet. Cove waved his phone in the air, giving you a small smile. I'm gonna take this. I'll be right back. Okay, tell her I said hi. Not made a small noise. Not held on to keep him there. Sure, yeah, okay. You gave him a light nod of the head. He got to his feet and stretched out, answering the call and holding the phone to his ear as he headed off. Hey, Mom, what's up? Tell her I said hi. He turned to give you a nod, smiling as he walked backwards towards the door. The lock clicked behind him as he exited the house, and you sank back onto the cushions, idly trying to decide what to do next. After electing to grab your own phone from its charger, you resumed your position on the couch, tapping away at the screen. Your mind drifted away from thoughts of Cove and his phone call with all of the many ways your device could distract you. It was an effective enough way to kill time, and you had managed to do various little things when the door opened again and Cove returned. I'm back. Hi. You watched as Cove strolled over to where you were still sitting. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, just... He sighed dramatically and let his forehead fall against the couch back. I know I just came back from visiting my mom, but... Well, last time I flew there, every time I'd just fly there and back, and so there's a lot of stuff I've left over there 'cause I couldn't take it all with me on the plane. Now that I'm not going to be visiting her like I used to, I'll have to go get it at some point. He gave you a look that you thought seemed almost guilty. Some of it is pretty big, so it's not really practical to have it shipped. I can drive over and pick it up. When will you go? That's what my mom wanted to know. She thought it'd be best to do it soon before things get even busier. He paused and let out a soft sigh, his shoulders dropping as if he really didn't want to be the one to have to tell you that. I think that's probably the idea that makes the most sense, too. It'd be good to get it over and done with. I'll be setting out as soon as I can. Oh, another trip already then. Yikes. I mean, it's good he's gonna get to see his mom. He sighed and dropped his head again. You could tell he wasn't any happier about having to go than you were about seeing him leave. It's not a big deal. The quicker you leave, the quicker you'll come back, right? Yeah. Looking up again, you met his bright aquamarine eyes, finding a sad smile tugging on his lips. Oh. Suddenly his eyebrows jumped and his eyes lit up like a lamp. You could come with me. What? You should come. My visits to my mom's are usually special, so she and I can spend time together. But this time it's not like that, it's an errand. My plan is to drive out one morning, spend the night, and then we can pack up the car the next morning and turn right back around. It'd only take 2 days for the whole thing. You thought to yourself for a moment, amused by Cove's excitement. Road trip buddies! Are you sure it'd be okay if I go? Yeah, why not? I probably could use the company. It's a pretty long drive for one person. A sprinkling of color spread over his cheeks as he admitted quietly. And I'd just really like to have you around. Plus, you'd get a chance to see my mom in person. I know she'd be happy to see you again. You shrugged casually, smiling as you officially let Cove talk you into it. Let's do it. A road trip with the two of us would be fun. I'll have to let my moms know, but as long as we've got nothing else important on the days we pick, then there's no reason I wouldn't be able to go. Cove's face brightened, and you were sure the prospect of having a travel buddy made the task seem less tiresome. Road trip with Cove! I'll call my mom back and tell her. We can pick a time right now. He's just so freaking cute! You spent some time together going over your schedules and making plans for when you could take the trip. You needed to fit it around Cove's work schedule, which he brought up on his phone to double check. Luckily, it was only a 2-day trip, so finding a couple free days in a row wasn't impossible. It wasn't long before the dates were finally set and all the plans were made. Excited for the trip! Road trip! A short trip sounded like the perfect way to spend some time. You could listen to music, eat snacks, and enjoy the open road. No matter what you thought about things, the morning when you were due to leave arrived. It was cooler than usual, the sun barely peeking over the tops of the houses. You stood outside your house on the footpath near the road, waiting for Cove. You yawned loudly, covering your mouth with the back of your hand. Mornings were always a struggle. Fucking mood. With your travel bag clutched in one hand, you watched as Cove finished packing up his car. He had organized all sorts of things, water bottles, snacks, and who knows what else. Cove insisted he had everything under control and didn't need help. At least you could rest easy, knowing that it was all taken care of. As you waited, you glanced over Cove's car. You knew it well. It used to belong to Mr. Holden, and when Cove had learned to drive, it passed to him. His dad had taken the opportunity to get a newer one. It was pretty old at this point, but it had served both of them well so far. You just hoped it had enough life left in it to survive a trip as long as the one you were embarking on. The slam of a door closing made you jump. You snapped back to focus and saw Cove was walking towards you. He dusted his hands off on his pants and tilted his head towards the car. That's it. Ready to go? Yeah, I'm ready. He smiled and stepped aside, giving you space to situate your own bag where you wanted it. Once everything was safely inside, he glanced back at you. We should get started. It's gonna be a ways to go. Woo! Yeah, hug him. Never mind the woo. Ah! He seemed surprised, but he chuckled and returned the gesture. It couldn't last for long, though. Time was of the essence. The two of you climbed into the car and buckled up, Cove in the driver's seat and you sitting shotgun. His eyes moved to you. Thanks again for coming on this trip with me. Of course, it's no problem. After checking the mirrors and starting the engine, you pulled out of the driveway and the trip began. With a small sigh, you got cozy in your seat and watched the familiar houses in your neighborhood pass by. Cove reached over to turn on the radio. A crackle of static mixed with the odd snippets of song filled the car as he flipped through the stations. Mr. Holden's car was in good condition, but it was, well, older. There was no way to plug in a phone to play music, so the radio had to do. Eventually, he settled on Top 40's station before sitting back and resting both hands on the wheel. Is that okay? Yeah, it works. He smiled, happy with the answer. Time flew by, and with it the scenery outside your window became more and more unfamiliar. It was a little fluttery, being alone in the car with Cove for so long. There was nowhere else you would have rather been. Every now and then you'd look over and sneak a glance at him, wondering what he was thinking about. Eventually, Cove broke the silence, clearing his throat softly before he spoke. It's been too long since you and I have spent time with my mom. I know she still comes to the neighborhood sometimes, but it's not even once a year. I'm always going to hers. I'm happy the two of us are doing this. Yeah, me too. But speaking of your mom and trips, remember the time she took us on that crazy drive all across town? He shook his head at the memory, his laughter clear and bright. Oh, I remember. I kept worrying about papers and shoes while you were having a blast. I mean, yeah, your mom was fun. What do you mean? I mean, yeah, it was a good night. Yeah, it was an amazing night. He smiled quietly to himself, clutching the wheel a little more confidently. With the crinkling of his eyebrows, a look of nostalgia crossed over Cove's features. Mom always knew how to make things memorable. Yeah, they're going to see Cove's mom and pick up some stuff he left at her house. I can't deny that. Silence slowly crept back into the space, both of you thinking back on that night and all the memories you had of it. Your elbow resting on the windowsill, you gazed out at the world that was slowly coming to life as the morning rolled on by. The sun climbed higher in the sky, forcing you to adjust the visor overhead to keep it out of your eyes. Hey, do you mind reaching back for me? Cove gave you a sidelong glance as he drove, indicating with a nod of his head and a tiny smile. I want some chips, the salt and vinegar ones. Oh, no, time out. Cove, you're wrong. Salt and vinegar is gross. That's icky. I don't like it. Yeah, I don't know how you can eat that. He huffed impatiently, keeping his eyes on the road. I like them and want to eat them. You shouldn't have a problem with letting me since you don't even like it. Stretching out the seatbelt to give yourself space, you twisted in your spot and reached into the bag holding the snacks. It took a bit of effort to sort through the collection of goodies stuffed inside, but eventually the bag of chips crinkled beneath your fingers as you pulled them out and sat back in your seat. Here. Thanks. Do you mind opening it? His eyes lit up at the prospects of the snacks, and you shook your head in amusement, popping the top of the bag. Pour for you in his hand, maybe? Cove held out one outstretched hand while trying to resist the urge to look at what he was getting. You did your best to have the chips fall in his palm, but some did end up on the floor. Thanks. After that, you rolled up the top of the bag and stowed the chips safely in the back again. When you turned to the front, it was to find Cove crushing the fistful of chips into his mouth, crunching loudly. He wiped his hand on his pants absent-mindedly before gripping the wheel and spilling crumbs all over the place. Cove, you're such a mess, my guy. Yeah, I don't even like the smell of salt and vinegar chips. Vinegar is just... nope. He is like... you're like a little kid. He snorted and pulled a hand from the wheel once more to flick the salty residue from his fingers at you. With a gasp, you raised an arm to defend yourself. You shook your head at the mess of crumbs that fell from his mouth as he chuckled. See what I mean? The hours drifted by much the same way as that, with the two of you snacking and chatting as the day stretched on. It was fairly calm and quiet, traveling along the open road, and you found little in the way of interruptions. At one point, you passed a "Welcome to Nevada" sign, and Cove gave a tiny cheer. He was in disbelief that the two of you were seriously all the way in another state like this. Eventually, you had to stop for gas and made a detour at a small diner to grab a proper meal that didn't consist of chips and candy. After refueling both the car and your stomachs, the drive was back on, just as the sun began dipping beneath the horizon and bathing the sky in a wash of orange light. Cove informed you that there wasn't too much longer left to go. You were almost there. When night eventually fell in a blanket of darkness, the drive finally came to an end. Cove pulled into the parking lot of Kyra's apartment building, the glow of the car lights disappearing as he turned off the engine and let out a heavy sigh. We made it. We're here. The two of you exchanged tired smiles, having successfully and safely completed one half of the trip. You were relieved to have actually arrived and eager to get out of the car and stretch your legs. You took the stairs up to the building together. After a knock, you were abruptly met by a flash of green hair as Kyra opened the door and immediately took her son in her arms. There he is, my gigantic baby boy. She squeezed him for a moment and then pulled back so she could examine his face. I love her. Are you even taller than the last time I saw you? Cove gave you a look and rolled his eyes amusedly as she patted the tops of his shoulders proudly. You say that every time I'm here. It doesn't even make sense right now. My last visit wasn't that long ago. Kyra simply laughed before letting him go fully and ushering the two of you into her apartment. Then she turned to you, a wide grin pulling at her lips. Blake, it's so nice you came along with. And as a bonus, you've both arrived in one piece. Yeah, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. Kyra beamed at you both, and while you would have loved nothing more than to settle down and rest after the drive, you could see she wasn't going to let you go that easily. So how was the trip? I admit, I was just a pinch worried. Not we barely made it. Probably let Cove answer. Yeah, let Cove answer that. It was fine, no problems for us. Kyra clapped her hands together, the bracelets around her wrists jingling. I'm so proud. I can hardly believe how mature you both are. Where did all those smarts come from? Her face, I love her. Cove ran a hand over his hair with an awkward chuckle. I don't know. Maybe I got some from my parents. His mom looked up at him deeply, her eyes glistening as she shook the sentimentality off with a wave of her hand. You have to be half asleep already, huh? I don't want to keep you up much longer. Early morning and any whoosies. How do you want to deal with the sleeping arrangements? I've only got my own room in Cove's, though the living room couch isn't bad. You keep your bed, Mom. Blake can use mine and I'll sleep on the couch or the floor. Whatever's easiest. It doesn't matter for one night. Kyra laughed out loud, startling you both. You raised an eyebrow at her outburst, giving her a quizzical look. Oh yeah, you'll just stay on the floor. You couldn't handle that much back when you were 13 with both your parents in the room. Damn! She called Cove the fuck out, okay? Cove blushed a dark red and gasped, completely unprepared for her to pull out that embarrassing moment from the past. Oh no, poor Cove. Look at her, she's so fucking proud of herself for bringing that up. I love Kyra so much, holy shit. Mom. He's had a long day. It's cruel to tease the poor boy so late, even if it is true. I mean, listen, I was the bad influence. I was the one telling him to climb up there with me. But you know, we're gonna pick on him with Kyra. I don't care. Cove hung his head in defeated embarrassment while you and Kyra chuckled together. I love Kyra so much. You're right. I'm just so happy you're here. I'll take the floor. Cove shook his head, dismissing the idea immediately. You're the guest. I don't want to take your bed. Well, I still don't want to take it from you, and I said it first. Okay, damn. The two of you narrowed your eyes at each other stubbornly. Kyra took that as her cue to step in. My house, my rules then. And you know who I have to side with. I'd like you to take the bed, Blake. You hesitated for a moment, but it seemed you had to accept the hospitality. With a small sigh, you gave in. All right. Cool. So, would you be okay with me sleeping on the floor in the room? I'd rather be there than out in the open in the living room, even if there is the couch. Yeah, you can sleep there. You're good, Cove. Kyra giggled softly, drawing your attention back to her. She seems to find a lot of things funny right now. What's going on, girl? Let me in on the jokes. All funny stuff aside, you need to get some sleep for tomorrow. Seems like you're setting yourselves up to not get any. I know that sounds really captious, but I'm a mom. I have to say these things. Come on, we're not little kids having a sleepover. We're responsible adults, right, Blake? Yes, very responsible. She gave the two of you a suspicious look, and you stood up straighter, trying to prove your point. I'll leave it at that then, for now. Just remember that the walls are thin in this apartment. If you can't settle down and sleep, I might have to separate you. I love her. We'll be good. Perfect. Kyra clasped her hands together, her bracelets softly tinkling against each other again. It's only getting later, so I better let you prepare for bed. She nodded towards the hallway and gave you a small smile. I'll play hostess for a sec and show you where the bathroom is first, Blake, and where you'll be staying for the night. Thank you. You hoisted your travel bag back over your shoulder and followed behind Kyra and down the hallway. Cove shuffled along behind you, disappearing into the bedroom while his mom had you go to the restroom. The apartment was small, but nicely decorated in soft, cool colors with plenty of artwork hanging on the walls to give it character. I like her apartment. It was stylish and exactly what you would have expected from someone like Kyra. Ooh. After being shown the bathroom and wishing Kyra a good night, you headed into the room and found Cove already there. He had changed into his sleepwear for the night as well and set aside his glasses already. Looking around, you found the bedroom to look much the same as the rest of the apartment, but with small ocean elements you were sure Cove must have enjoyed when he stayed here. All in all, the room was pretty and clean, though it almost looked more like a hotel guest room than a bedroom. Cove only spent a few weeks out of the year there, so it made sense that it wasn't especially lived in. What do you think? It's pretty nice, huh? Mom always keeps it clean and everything, even when I'm not here. It's a great room. Cool, I'm glad you like it. Genuinely, this apartment's fucking adorable. He seemed pleased enough with the response and gave you a small smile before opening the zip on his bag. When you went back to the room, you jumped in bed and under the covers, just as Cove was shuffling into his sleeping bag on the floor. You waited until he was settled in before you flipped off the lights, and a soft glow from outside peeked through the blinds, casting shadows over the floor. You closed your eyes, blocking everything out. Night, Blake. Night, Cove. Sleep well. The room grew quiet as the two of you wound down for the night, and you found yourself listening to the sounds of the city outside the window. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Must be weird going from like Sunset Bird, like super tiny town, to like sleeping in a city with all the noise and stuff. The noise out there was so different to what you were used to back home. Cars zooming past and people out having fun instead of crashing waves and the ocean winds cocooning your house in their embrace. This feels familiar, don't you think? We've been having sleepovers for years. Cove mumbled quietly and rustled in his bedding, turning to face towards your location. Right? It feels like I've had this view so many times, looking up over at you tucked into bed. He trailed off a little, and you assumed he was drifting off to sleep, too tired to continue the conversation. But then, as if a switch had been hit, he sprung up, startling you as he shot upright in his sleeping bag. Wait a minute. Why am I always on the floor? What? You raised your eyebrows at him through the dark. The times I slept over at your house, you got to stay in your bed. It was your bed after all. But when it was my family hosting things, Dad always made sure you got a bed there. The words spilled out of him faster and faster, the pitch of his voice rising as the revelation spiraled. He'd say that you were the guest, so it was only right. No matter what, I've always been the one who takes the floor. Every time. This is a racket. Okay, I feel like I would laugh at him a little bit. Yeah, burst out laughing. How is that only hitting you now? Don't ask me questions. My life is crumbling. I can't believe it. This has been going on for 10 years. Oh, poor boy. He stopped suddenly, and you could see through the limited light that his eyebrows were angled in disbelief, his frown wobbly in shock. That's how it is in my family. My moms have always thought that it was more fun and comfortable for the guests to use their own sleeping things rather than a stranger's bed. And in my family, the guest gets the bed because it's good to make sure your guest has a proper place to sleep. We were opposites all along, but I never even thought about it. When it looked like the situation was going to stall there, he suddenly scoffed. At least you were comfortable all those times we shared a room. Even though he meant the words, he was being snarky about it. Despite looking on the bright side, he was still pouting. um, I don't know. Why don't we both sleep on the floor? It's what we did our first sleepover. Go over and cheer him up. Slipping out of bed, you kneeled down on the floor beside him, though he promptly turned away from you and continued moping. Okay, Cove, what do you want from me here? Because, I offer you take the bed and you go no. And then I accept the bed and now you're like, wait a minute, I'm always on the floor. I don't know what to do for you right now, my guy. Wrap your arms around him. Thinking of nothing else to do, you leaned in and snuggled him into a hug, earning a grumble in response. However, you didn't miss the blush that spread across his cheeks and stained his skin. Just hug him. Yeah, you said nothing. You really didn't know what else to say to make him feel better about the whole situation. With a slight smile, he gave you a playful nudge to go back to bed, which, with a small sense of satisfaction, you did. With a tired sigh, he flopped back down. I can make do with the floor, for old time's sake. Some real humor came back to his tone. It's basically a tradition by now. Are you really sure you don't want the bed? I don't mind trading places. No, it's alright. I already said I'd sleep on the floor, and I don't mind. You're already doing me a big favor by coming here in the first place. Just let me do this one thing and give you the bed. That's what I want for this trip, okay? Pursing your lips tight, you gave a small nod and admitted defeat. Alright, I'll have the bed. Thanks, Cove. He made a small noise but said no more. With an accepting sigh, you pulled the covers up under your chin and got comfortable. Good morning! It's all bright and shit. The next day dawned, bringing with it the sounds of birds chirping happily outside the window. You opened your eyes slowly, letting them adjust to the light as you tried to recall where you were, and remembering the unfamiliar sight of Cove's second bedroom. Honestly, Cove probably nudged me awake. Alarms don't work too good with me. Rise and shine, Blake. Cove shook your shoulder, and you groaned dramatically and buried your head beneath your pillow. Yeah, that sounds right. 5 more minutes. No way, we've got to get started. Sitting up in bed, you let out a yawn and stretched your arms above your head. Honestly, I'd probably probably still be groggy. You were used to sleeping in longer than this, and the late night hadn't helped. Morning. The two of you were on completely different wavelengths right now. You pulled yourself out of bed, grabbing a fresh change of clothes and your toiletries before heading to the bathroom. After all that, you met Cove back in his room. He was sitting on the floor when you entered, sorting through a bunch of stuff in a box, determining what to bring and what to leave behind. Hey. Hey, can you pull out the stuff in those drawers? You nodded, though he hadn't even looked up from his task, so you knew he wouldn't have seen. Heading over to his drawers, you started the task of taking out various items and setting them on the ground in front of Cove. Oh hey, look at this! When you turned towards the sound of Cove's voice, you found him digging through one of the drawers beneath the bed. Here's something I definitely need to bring. Neat. Craning your head, you got a better glimpse of what he was holding. A small stack of papers. You immediately recognized the handwriting as your own. Those were letters you had sent him when he was away. He kept them the whole time. Stop, he's so cute. I love him. It is adorable you care so much for them. He sighed, glancing between you and the items in his hands. They bring back some good memories. A faint blush of color crept over his cheeks, and he looked away quickly. These are special. It was important, having a piece of you with me when we were apart. Him so cute. I feel the same way. That's why I gave them to you. Cove smiled, pleased that the feeling was mutual, but then the expression became more amused. And did you keep the souvenirs I brought back? Of course. His grin grew to completion. Thanks. Another hour passed by in silence, and you were happy to see you were making great progress with Cove's room, with only the closet left to sort through. You took a minute to take a mouthful of water from your bottle and perched on the edge of the bed, feeling productive. Cove glanced over at you and paused, putting down the tape gun he had been using to seal up his boxes. You raised an eyebrow. You know, it's really strange to see you sitting in this room. Why? He frowned a little, his eyes distant and his voice quiet when he spoke next. During the visits to Mom's, when I was sitting alone in this room, I'd sometimes think about how you weren't here. It was a weird feeling at the time that you just weren't around, and now that you're here in this exact place. I don't know how to explain the feeling. He shrugged it off and smiled a little, as though he'd said enough already and didn't want to risk sounding silly. Life is pretty confusing is all. That's true. Life makes no sense. But I think we both managed to navigate it well enough so far. He smiled slightly, nodding his head a little. Yeah, I hope so. He looked away satisfied, heading over to the closet and the last of the items to be sorted. Before long, every box, closet, and drawer had been thoroughly combed through, with the items either neatly packed up in boxes or organized and returned to their proper place. With a sigh of relief, you glance around the bedroom and the work you had done together. We're done. Good job to us. I'm gonna change out of my PJs for the drive. Yeah. When the two of you headed out into the living room, ready to get everything finalized and hit the road, you found Kyra in the kitchen, pouring a cup of tea. Cove headed towards her, leaning casually against the counter that divided the two spaces. Hey, you didn't have to get up so early. Are you crazy? Of course I have to see you off before you go. You can't sneak away while I'm out cold. She beamed at him and, in all honesty, seemed more than happy to be up and getting ready for the day. Do you want some breakfast? I've got some muesli or eggs and toast. Oh, and some of that fruity cereal you used to love. That's okay. We should really eat on the road. Kyra smiled sadly, a little disappointed, but she seemed to understand that your time was running thin. I thought you might say that. In that case, I've packed you some snacks for the road. Even if you don't end up eating them, take it anyway, just in case. You can always feed them to Cliff when you get home. And tell him I said hi. I love them. Oh my goodness. I just want to hug her. Cove laughed and shook his head, knowing his dad would love nothing more than to polish off whatever food Kyra had prepared for you. Thanks, Mom. You really didn't have to. It must be a mom thing, honestly. I think moms are good at that stuff. But let's thank her too. Thanks for the snacks. I'm sure they'll come in handy with this guy around. Cove scoffed and playfully rolled his eyes, earning a giggle from Kyra. I don't doubt it. Like father, like son. She returned your smile with one of her own before putting her cup of tea aside. Well, I'll help you get the car packed. Sure, thanks. The three of you got a move on, taking the boxes from Cove's bedroom and heading down to fill the back seat of the car until there was barely an inch of space left in the back and trunk. With all of you helping, it only took a couple of trips to move everything, and you were done before you knew it. Then it was truly time to say goodbye. You convened back inside the apartment where Kyra looked over the two of you with a quiet smile. It was great to see you both. Thank you for coming. She gave each of you a hug, and you felt a little sad that you hadn't been able to spend more time with her. It was good to see you too, Mom. Cove embraced her in return, and the two of them holding on to each other for a few seconds longer. I love them. I'll miss you, but I'll visit again soon. You better. Look at her face. I love that I feel like she's just always up to something. That's what it feels like, and it's funny. Hey, we should make plans for you to visit us too. I'll let you know when it's settled. I'd love that. Kyra bundled all the stuff she prepared into a bag and handed them over to you. You took a quick peek at what she had packed. There was fruits, nuts, seeds, hard-boiled eggs, and some veggie sticks. Oh, good to see we've got some fresh food options now. The snacks I brought weren't. Kyra shook her head at him and let out a soft laugh, as though she wouldn't have expected anything else. I seriously hope you're feeding yourself better than that at home. Yeah, of course, just not on trips. I can live with that then. She looked over him fondly, her eyes at last focusing on his face and filling with emotion. I'm going to miss you, baby. Me too. Bye. It was nice seeing you again. You too, Blake. I hope you'll visit again soon. Kyra put an arm around you both, pulling you in tight to her sides for one final squeeze. Have a safe trip. We will. With a last goodbye, you exited the apartment, though Cove hesitated for a moment in the door, his expression distant. You weren't sure what he was doing, though you tentatively took a step towards him. Everything okay? Your voice seemed to bring him back to earth, and he shook his head to clear his thoughts, his green hair swaying from side to side. Yeah, let's go. With that, the two of you headed back down to the car, ready to make the long trip home. Soon enough, you were on the wide open road with a car full of Cove's things and only one destination, Sunset Bird, California. The drive went as smoothly as could be expected, with the morning slowly creeping into midday as the miles flew by. The day flew by in a whir of open road and sunshine, and before you knew it, it was early afternoon. By that point, you had already crossed the state line. Cove announced that he planned a little stop on the way home. He was quite pleased with himself as you arrived at the precipice. The Redwood National Park. Shaded beneath a canopy of enormous redwood trees, you drove along. When Cove parked the car, you pushed the door to get out, and the first thing you did was look up. Enormous redwood trees surrounded you on all sides, their massive trunks shooting straight up into a canopy of foliage overhead. There were too many of them to count, stretching on and on as far as you could see. You squinted against the sunlight that was peeking through the leaves and dancing on the paths around you. It's great, right? He smiled at you from over the roof of the car before glancing around the place fondly. Remember the trip our families took here that one summer? It was cool going on a journey and seeing the forest in person, even if we didn't stay very long. And I guess we can stay for even less this time, but oh well. It just seemed like a good time to stop by. Who knows when we'll get another chance. His voice got a little softer at the end. It seemed to be bittersweet for him, being in a place he was so fond of, but not having the time to appreciate it fully. Pleased to have stopped there. It was a beautiful place to stretch your legs and take in some fresh air. Not I'll put up with you for the trees, or I'll put up with this place for you, Jesus. Thanks for bringing me here. Cove smiled, shoving his hands in his pockets and dipping his head. No problem. The two of you walked around for a while, completely dwarfed by the sheer scale of the redwoods. It kind of put your view on yourself and everything in a strange perspective. You took in a lungful of clean forest air, listening to the sounds of bird song and the cool breeze rustling through the underbrush, taking advantage of the space to move around freely. However you felt about being there, it was a totally different scene than sitting in that old car for hours and hours. walked closer to Cove. He seemed tense when you approached, but he didn't move away. Eventually, he relaxed a little, and the two of you walked along in a comfortable silence. Being here again, you couldn't help but reminisce on what else had happened during the trip you had taken here all that time ago. There were a lot of things that reminded you of it recently. You looked over at Cove, who seemed to be lost in the peace of the place, and you wondered if any of it crossed his mind. Smiling at the sight, you thought back on what had been a highlight of that long-gone vacation. Yeah, Elizabeth, Elizabeth was such a jackass, but she still kinda is to him a little. I'm gonna go with that one. Elizabeth teased us mercilessly on that trip, remember? Liz really pulled no punches when she was a teen. I can hardly believe some of the things she said to us. Cove groaned, and though his eyebrows dipped grumpily, you could see a shadow of a smile tugging at his lips. I remember, unfortunately, but I don't know why you're pretending she's gotten better. Liz never gives me a break. You had to crack a smile. Cove was honestly a favorite target of hers for teasing, but so were you. You continued chatting about the trip a little while longer, about the things you had seen and done, and even eaten. A lot of the memories Cove had of the trip were similar to your own, but you were also surprised to hear of a few other things from his point of view. So much had happened that there was no shortage of things to talk about. The place certainly had a nostalgic quality to it, about it. Hey Blake. You looked over at the sound of Cove saying your name to find him smiling at you, seeming relaxed amongst the nature of the park. You have gorgeous eyes. The words left his lips and you froze, completely taken aback by the compliment. He blushed and quickly dipped his head, unable to look at you. That's another thing that happened during the trip. He's not wrong. Oh my goodness. I love him. Yeah, I'm gonna go with your eyes are much more beautiful. I'm sorry, but like, his eyes though. You bit down on your lip as you gazed into his aquamarine eyes, admiring the different blues and the hint of green that swirled in them. Your spirits were light as you ambled past the information boards and picnic areas. But before long, you decided it was time to bring this short stop to an end and head back to the car to get on the road again. Not him flirting with us. He's so fucking cute. I love him. Cove sighed when you finally reached the vehicle, jangling the keys in his hand before unlocking the doors. I wish we didn't have to go, but we're going to be responsible and not stay longer than we should. How grown up of you. He smiled slightly, and with that, the two of you jumped into the car, buckled in, and he put it in drive. You were getting closer and closer to town as the sun started setting, though we're still far enough away that the radio stations were unfamiliar to you. Ah! Cove twisted the dial this way and that before stumbling onto a channel with a song he seemed to like. That was a rare gift from the fates in a sea of static, strange radio jockeys, and grating tunes. His face immediately brightened at the sound of it, and he drummed his fingers along the bottom of the steering wheel happily. Sitting back in his seat, he bopped his head along in time to the tune. I love him. Smiled. You got the impression he was pleased to be heading back home after everything. The song ended and Cove reached up to start cycling through the radio stations again. Upon finding nothing tolerable, he flipped the dial off in defeat and leaned back in his seat with a sigh. You rested your head on your hand and stared out the window as the sky darkened, watching the landscapes slowly melt into more familiar views. The miles went on, and any energy you had earlier was beginning to drain away. You imagined home and your family. You'd be there together soon. You know, I've spent all these years living in Sunset Bird and taking a few weeks each summer to visit my mom in that second room. That's not gonna happen anymore. Not really. I can still see my parents, but the way it all works between us has changed forever. He paused, the silence stretching. A serious look settled on his face, his thoughts far away. I'm excited to be on the brink of real adulthood. There are so many experiences we've yet to do. Cove's mouth pulled into a tight line, though he gave a small nod. Cove stared straight ahead down the long, long road. The path looked like it'd never end from where you were, but that wasn't true. Eventually, he found a few more words to say. I think it's good we were able to do this trip without any parents or chaperones. It was just us. We did it all. That is true. I don't know. I feel a little more independent now. A little more ready for what's ahead. Right. It's like a real first step to be on our own all the time. It'll be here before we know it. The topic seemed to wear on Cove, and he made an attempt to find something else to speak on. So, I'm kinda sad about getting back. I'm gonna miss having you right there tonight. He grimaced and leaned forward, his shoulders tense and his eyes hyper-focused on the road ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for that to sound weird or anything. It's just nice to hang out. That isn't strange, I can understand it. Cove gave you a small smile, one that you returned, and the two of you fell into a more comfortable silence. The sky outside grew ever darker as the hours passed by. The stars blinking on like tiny fireflies painted onto a canvas of blue. The scenery continued transitioning between open roads, industrial areas, and beach towns, becoming increasingly recognizable as time went on. You felt somewhat disconnected from the world around you as you watched it through your window, your tired mind growing hazy. It was a strange, reflective feeling, but peaceful nonetheless. Soon enough, the world would return to you, and you'd find your feet firmly on the ground. It couldn't be helped. The adventure would end, life could continue, but your memories would linger on. And there we go. We are done with yet another one. So that means, okay, let's see. It is Tuesday, so you figure Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, my day off Saturday, superhero Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, that next Monday, and then, yeah, so if we do that, then we'll start shifting gears into another game during the week. And then we have Cove's ending, Derek's ending, Baxter's ending, and Cove's wedding DLC, which, like I said, probably those will be special Saturday streams. Not quite sure the starting time yet, but we will figure it the heck out. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at right there. I'm excited. I hope y'all know, like, I have Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village. I have a couple other visual novels I want to show you. I might ask people and see if y'all want. We can do the demo of Now and Forever. Because like I said, I am trying to build up some hype for that. That's probably going to be properly releasing maybe sometime next year. Potentially. I don't fucking know. But thank you so much for hanging out with me. I do appreciate it. I hope y'all enjoyed going on a little road trip with Cove. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm going to save so carefully. Save. This right here. Overwrite the save. Yes. For anyone who doesn't know, the other day I accidentally hit load and I had to off stream I had to reselect all my options for the charity moment, so hooray for fixing that. But y'all, thank you for hanging out with me. I do appreciate you. Don't worry, once we are done with the visual novel and we get back into a different type of game, the streams will start filling out a little bit more. But like I said, for now, we're kind of stuck either ending early or ending late, and it's just easier for me personally when we end early. I'd be too tired if we go too late. But yeah, on that note, I do hope y'all enjoyed. Like I said, I don't remember these specific DLC moments, so I'm gonna be experiencing a lot of these ones here with y'all, and I look forward to that. But again, thank you so much for hanging out with me. And as always, take care of yourselves, be kind to yourselves. It's hard being a person. You're doing the best you can. I am proud of you. Maya, thank you so much for the resub with Prime. I appreciate it. But yeah. And don't forget to live a life that pisses off a bigot. Bye, y'all.